Good morning, my dear friends. We're already past the May holiday weekend. I hope you had a really good time. If the May holiday weekend is over, that means one thing. We need to take care of our plants so that they are beautiful and spectacular all season long, not just average. That's why in today's episode, I'll tell you how to take care of hydrangeas, roses, and plants in the vegetable garden and on the terrace. Together with Sumin, a Polish company and one of the partners of the Wow Garden project this year and the Vegetable Garden campaign, I'll show you which fertilizers to use so that these plants are truly beautiful. Mid-May, my friends, is the perfect time to additionally feed and nourish our hydrangeas because they need these nutrients to develop beautiful and strong shoots as well as large and well-colored flower heads. Right now, my friends, I'm using fertilizers that have an increased amount of potassium, phosphorus, and nitrogen. Nitrogen is needed specifically to produce a large amount of foliage. Phosphorus and potassium ensure the proper development of these leaves and later the proper coloring of the flowers. So it's very important to use such fertilizer about every 10 to 14 days. Here, as part of the Mokobfitości series, Sumin has prepared a powdered fertilizer that works very well. It dissolves in water and basically you just need 2 teaspoons of it, pour them into 10 liters of water and use it to water the hydrangeas. Remember, every 10 to 14 days is the optimal time, especially now when hydrangeas need a lot of these nutrients and microelements. During intense growth, plants can sometimes develop certain deficiencies. We can identify them very quickly if we take a close look at such a plant. In the case of the garden hydrangea, if red or yellow spots appear on the youngest leaves, or if the entire leaf is light green and then darker veins appear, and the whole leaf blade is simply yellow, it means that this plant is lacking iron or magnesium. And iron magnesium fertilizers applied at the right time, soon after identification, ensure that the plant doesn't suffer growth setbacks. Because if this iron is lacking, the process of photosynthesis slows down, the leaves develop poorly, and all of this causes the plant to simply grow less well. Hydrangea is a very popular plant in Polish gardens, but the true aristocrat, the #1 plant in Polish gardens, is the rose. Both the bedding, standard, and climbing ones. And roses right now, also in May, when their shoots are growing very intensively, also need the right fertilizers and plant food. And you should remember to use such fertilizers regularly. Fertilizer for roses has a specific composition. Because the distribution of these micronutrients is 5, 10, and 34, where nitrogen makes up 5%, which is for those lush growths. That's 5% of the composition, 10% is phosphorus pentoxide, and the rest is potassium. This causes the plant, the flowers, to have much better coloration later, and the stems will be much stronger. While fertilizing, we also take a look at the leaves to see if there are any deficiencies. And of course, we check if, in the case of the climbing rose, which I have so carefully tied to this trellis, any problems have appeared. Here, the wind, which is definitely stronger in May than in other months, caused this rose to come loose. So I need to fix this shoot here, attach it again so it doesn't stick out, because when strong winds come and it gets more leaves, it could simply break off. An important thing when it comes to fertilizing plants, remember that plants grow in different conditions. For example, here my rose pitch melba, which is on a sunny wall, starts growing much earlier, so we can use fertilizer about 2 weeks sooner. If you have such a rose somewhere in a more shaded spot where it's a bit cooler, then apply the fertilizer a little later. And properly applied fertilizer and the right condition of our plants is already a kind of prevention, for example, against various pests like aphids. A well-fertilized rose that is healthy will basically handle aphids on its own. And remember, if you've already planted other plants on terraces or in pots, after about a week or two, you should also start fertilizing so that these plants will be lush. Especially if they're planted in containers, because they don't have access to the naturally occurring micronutrients in the soil. For me, one of the most important places in the garden is the vegetable patch. That's why when the time comes to plant and sow vegetables, I spend a lot of time choosing the right soil mixes and making sure to take proper care of the soil and fertilize correctly. It's time for the tomatoes, cucumbers, some zucchinis and pumpkins to be planted in the garden, so I wanted to take care of improving the structure of this soil a bit. And I brought an organic fertilizer for tomatoes, which is made from fermented green mass and can't be over applied. And it enriches the soil excellently. It also makes the micronutrients more absorbable, both by tomatoes and by other vegetable plants. Then I can also use a soluble fertilizer just like with ornamental plants. Because if the soil structure is appropriate, then the fertilizer is taken up more effectively and the roots penetrate the soil much better. Enriching the soil with organic fertilizer is especially important if the soil is poor in minerals. Remember, the right plant-specific nutrients are like supplements for an athlete. It gives an immediate effect, and on top of that, saves your gardening season. When it comes to the garden, please write how your garden and your terrace are coming back to life after a long winter. And be sure to subscribe to the channel, because in a moment I'll show you the gardens from this year's edition of the Wow Garden project. Personally, I can't wait, and I hope you can't either. Let me know in the comments if you're looking forward to these videos from the Wow Garden project, and see you soon.